Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Elbows Down MotoGP podcast. This is, of course, the British Grand Prix review. I'm joined, as always, by co-host Alex Higginson. How are you, mate?
Oh, hi. Yeah, grand.
Joined by Ryan again. Ryan's joined us a couple of times in the past. Of course, I think it was it wasn't a year ago. It was last August that we did the British Grand Prix review with Gary, didn't we? We certainly did the British Grand Prix Donington chat with you guys, and we know to go on a bit, but we've got Ryan for about half an hour today, maybe a bit less. And Ryan's basically going to talk us through his experience this year's MotoGP episode, which ashamedly neither of us two managed to get to, but we've been plenty of times. But obviously, Ryan, straight away, what was the first thing that you thought? Okay, this is bad. I mean, obviously we know Monster Energy's not there. So you don't have anything to do there. And
going straight in with the negativity, aren't we?
Yes.
I was going to say I won't go straight in for that, but Jimmy's just gone straight in.
Yeah, it was fucking. How shit was it?
We know you had a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. I did have a really good time.
We know you did. But we also know that you're a massive enthusiast, aren't you? You're always going to be good. It's like me and Alex will pick the phones out of it if we're there. Well, that's shit. Well, this is shit. Oh, hang on, MotoGP, yes! We don't care, but it's about how it looks to people that are new to it. So, we'll talk about the racing, we'll get to it. First impressions of, this year, has anything changed apart from the go-kart track that they've lumbered right where the trade stalls is in Staines? Take it away.
Yeah, so we've got to talk about the go-kart track first of all. I think the geography of Silverstone itself is in big trouble. Because such a big area has been taken away, it's all sort of squished into areas that really isn't for that. So as you know, with the Silverstone layout, most of the stands are around the outside of the track. So for MotoGP, they focus around the Hamilton Straight, Club Corner, that kind of area.
Yeah.
Well, then obviously you've got to walk up past Abbey and cross the first bridge to get to the inner, to get to the area where the entertainment is. So the first main stages, which is now on the right rather than the left. That creates the first bottleneck. The second bottleneck is to get to the trade area, which is over the second bridge towards the paddock. Yeah. Now, we were shuffling on a Saturday slowly around there, like zombie pace. Now, on a Saturday, I think it was 30,000 that attended. So you add F1 numbers onto that, which is quite easy, comfortably another 100,000.
Easily.
That is going to be a nightmare.
God, yeah, actually, yeah, that is going to be crazy.
Yeah, the space isn't there now. From what I understand, there is actually been a change behind Club Corner. They've moved the gate right back to the campsite, so there's a lot more space there. But it was empty. There was nothing there. Apparently, they had a big tent there for the F1 last year. Whether they start doing more of a fan zone there, I don't know. But overall, it's difficult to get around because, as I said, we all sit around the edge of the track. You've got Luffield all the way around, obviously down to Club. You've got to get that way over to it, and we've got a lot less space. Moving on to the trade area, so we talked about the stage. The trade area is obviously a lot smaller because it's inside the smaller paddock, the national paddock, but the edge of it, like the car park. Now, where they had the Monster Energy drift zone last year, well, imagine that whole area now is the trade zone plus a bit of a drift area. So even the drift show was smaller than ever, to the point where I'm walking around it, I'm saying to my mate Tom, I'm really not sure how they're going to do much more than a figure of 8 and a donut in there. Lo and behold, figure of 8 and a donut, but they did manage to have two cars going around at the same time.
Brilliant.
So it just felt half-baked.
I think that's what we've been saying for the last, pretty much ever since we found out that the British Grand Prix was going to be, the Grand Prix of the United Kingdom.
Yeah. That's what I should have said.
Yeah. Ever since we found out that it was going to be in May rather than August, ever since we found out stuff like the infield was now going to completely change, it was going to be no more Monster, it's going to be TSO instead, no more Monster Energy Arena, all that kind of stuff. Ever since then, we've been saying the same thing, though. We've been saying it feels half-assed, it feels half-baked, it feels like...
Afterthought.
It almost feels like they've put a lot of effort into not making it good in a weird way, which is ridiculous when you consider that Stuart Pringle is he's a rider himself. He cares. He apparently cares about Silverstone for MotoGP and all that sort of stuff. But it's just got a really bizarre way of showing it. I don't know if it's kind of like he thought, right, I need to change something drastic. We need to come up with a way of changing it drastically, and then it's just sort of everything's come together, and then we've all kind of realised, hang on a minute, all these new things. It's a bit like, for me, it's a bit like when a restaurant says we've got a new menu coming, and then they release the new menu. It's just basically the old menu with less things on it.
Without anything good to do or something.
Yeah, they've added a fucking jacket potato to it. No one wants a jacket potato in a restaurant.
Yeah. But no, go on.
I was just going to say, it's a tough one to really digest, because you are walking around there, and to be fair, the comments are fair. There isn't a lot to do off track. There was a stall that had GP racing apparel in, a Rossi stall that had obviously his gear as well as the rider gear that he looks after, a track house stand, which was quite interesting.
That was good.
Ducati. And then you had maybe 2 smaller traders there, and you had Muck Off, and then 151s, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But there just wasn't a lot, and there was manufacturers there. We had Harley Davidson there, which was cool. Never seen them there before. You had Ducati, you had Aprilia, and you had KTM. So we're missing 2 big ones there in terms of Honda and Yamaha, which was very odd. But I got to talking to a family on Friday afternoon when I was waiting for the Aprilia autograph session. So they were a family of grandma, daughter, daughter's partner, other daughter, and that daughter's partner, and kids. They were just saying there's nothing for the kids to do. There's literally nothing for them to do. And I couldn't disagree with her. There was a game of football darts that you obviously had to pay to do, some mini cars that you could drive around, and the Zorbin sort of thing.
Yeah.
So for families, and I remember last year it was all, we move it to May, we get the families in. Well, there's nothing for them to do, to the point where they're sat there saying, it's not really worth it for us. We're sat in here thinking kids are hard to entertain as it is. And you did see them, some of them having a right good time just rolling down hills, this, that, and the other, fair enough. But
which they could do at the London Park.
Exactly. You've got to have something to keep them entertained. And they had the Army Village, but again, once a kid's seen a couple of Army vehicles sat in them, what do they do then?
And a couple of rifles, a couple of tanks. Brilliant, there we go, that'll do.
It's alright, us nerds sitting at Cop's Corner watching them tip in and watching all the classes, fair enough, but when you are trying to attract families, you've got to have something there. And they did used to have a family zone, and I can't imagine that wasn't popular. Even if you had something really daft, a pop-up play park, an inflatable thing, there's all these things that don't cost a lot to hire that I think you could do something with to keep the families. And there is the space around the circuit, but again, it's making it easy to move around. You're going to be relying on Copse Tunnel to get anywhere else.
It's really interesting, actually, the family point, because Jimmy and I don't really think about that sort of thing.
No, me neither.
Because we don't have kids, but it's so important. You think about the amount of exposure that Dorna have been giving young fans at tracks. Say, for example, last year at Silverstone, there was Gary Dale, and his son got that amazing experience going into the garage, all that sort of stuff, because he was so excited.
Yeah.
And then you think back to the kid where Mark had crashed and this kid had cried. And then when Mark won, that kid in Thailand was like, he got to be with him in Parc Ferme. Yeah. And so there's a massive heavy, there's a really, really heavy focus on children at Grand Prix, trying to encourage new fans, which is great. But it's and I've seen loads of images of kids in the grandstand and kids on people's shoulders getting photos and all that sort of stuff. But you're absolutely right. When they're not doing that stuff, when they're not, when the cameras aren't rolling, trying to get young fans into it, how do you keep children entertained?
Exactly.
Because they've got the attention span of a gnat.
Yeah. I mean, I think, do you know what? I mean, I never had that as a kid, because straight away I was just wanting to hear and see the bikes. But not all kids are going to be like that. And I think Gary's son, sorry Gary if you're watching, I've forgotten your son's name, beg your pardon. He's also he's killing it in mini moto, by the way. So congratulations for that. But think he probably has no issue with watching the racing either. But they're not all going to be like that. If it's their first time, this is a really important point, and I'm glad that you brought this up because I mean, there used to be more entertainment zones at Silverstone.
Yeah,
and you've got
one of the biggest, a family zone.
These are a family zone, yeah. There was, I think more than one. But I can't help but think we've got, especially when you're trying to get into the paddock on the Thursday, whatever they call it now, Experience Day. There needs to be. It will barely be used. For goodness' sake, there needs to be a bridge, another bridge built that goes from the outside of the track straight over into the infield. And my goodness me, it would shave off people's days by half an hour, 45 minutes to get back. And you look at all of that infield. Look at all of that infield where they had the famous Richard Hammond in an F1 car. That was Stowe Circuit. You've got all of Stowe Circuit behind the main wing paddock.
Yeah.
You probably have trucks there for. You might have trucks. All the British parking. Yeah, VIP parking. But you've also got, where Hanger Straight is. You've still got that bridge, but that's not used for the public, is it?
They close it.
You've got such a big site. They need to start making the most now of that infield that is just, it's not wasteland, but it's nothingness. It needs to be expanded. They're not going to demolish now. I don't know how many complaints there will be, maybe a lot after Formula 1. That was actually really good, having that there, because it wasn't a million miles. That's the one walk I didn't mind, from the wing area grandstands through Bridge, and then you've got everything there. You've got Luffield and all. That wasn't a bad walk. I didn't mind doing that. Now that that's sort of been cut off, and you walked even further, now it's messed up, and kids will, as you said,
it's too far, and they get bored, and they get more tired than adults as well.
Yeah.
And it is really, really important getting children into the sport, because at the moment, the sport is very, the fan base is governed by
we're the young ones.
Let's face it, blokes in their 50s and 60s, that sort of thing. And blokes like your dad. And the thing is, at some point in the not too distant future, these people are not going to be able to go to these events. And then who is going to go to the events?
There is a quick
got into the sport. If there's nothing to get them into the sport, then what the fuck are they doing?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, go on, sorry, Ryan.
So I was just going to say, there is a quick fix. We've got vast amount of grandstands that aren't open, and those that have got quite a bit of land behind them. Open family stands. Put them in one area and use the whole area behind it as a family area. All of a sudden, you've got people that are going to be using the stuff behind it, so they're going to get the trade, footfall, whatever they're after.
Yeah.
And it's going to keep people entertained, so they haven't got to keep walking around. I mean, it's better than just sat in a field of grass rolling around, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think if you can then get traders involved, because I know the manufacturer area isn't cheap, but behind the stands there wasn't a single trader. So when I mean trade, I mean merch. So behind Luffield there's nothing. They had a bit behind Hamilton A, but it was food, drink, that kind of stuff.
What about Club? Because there's normally Vale and Club.
Club did have a merch stand, to be fair. They had two.
Right, because they always do that, don't they?
Where were we on the Saturday, not last year, the year before?
That was Luffield.
We were Luffield when it was wet, 2023.
Yeah.
We were there, and it was absolutely freezing. Sideways rain. And the rain was like needles. And what was funny was Jimmy and Katie were, Katie was getting into MotoGP because she's with Jimmy and all that sort of stuff. But she was freezing cold and hadn't brought anything with her to put on. It's like an hour walk back to Woodlands. So she dove out of the grandstand and was like, right, I'm going to go to the nearest merch stand and buy a bloody hoodie because I'm freezing cold. And went and bought a Max Verstappen hoodie. Yes, very good. Yes, Max Verstappen. But that's the point. You've got changing conditions all the time at Silverstone. It's like Phillip Island. That sort of thing. If I was a smart organizer of the event, I'd think these stands could make a load of money because when the weather changes, it's nice and hot at the moment. But in 15 minutes' time, it's going to be sideways rain. Yeah. And everyone's going to want to buy a hoodie, no matter what it's for.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. And the thing is, in 22, because that was back at the National Pit Straight, you had a lot more trade on that straight and tops. And there was more relevant stuff. But then there was probably about 7,000 people more there. So there'd be more incentive for the R46 merch and all these companies to actually have more stalls. They're not going to send this opens up the other issue. They're not going to send excess tents that will make no money. That's because there's not enough people there to warrant sending them there.
Yeah.
That's where I can see the argument coming back. It's like, oh god. But yeah, I mean, Club Corner. That's where Woodlands campsite. You remember that? There's trays, stands just behind Club Corner.
Yeah.
I'm glad there was a few there, and that's usually where 151s is. But yeah, I mean, the money side is people. We already look at how much it costs. Everyone knows that like a burger or a beer or a Coke is gonna cost silly money. So that's irrelevant. You need to be ready for that yourself. That's your own responsibility. Your food, and your drink.
First year of not having, not being allowed to bring alcohol into the track.
Yeah, there was some
out of interest, how much was a pint?
Yeah, good point.
I'm not sure because I didn't buy a pint. I think the most I bought was a Coke, which was £3.20. I sort of came prepared.
330ml can?
Yeah, that's it. £3.20 for a little can from the bar.
Wow,
I think,
that's almost £1 per milliliter.
Yeah, it wasn't cheap.
£1 per milliliter. Yeah, £1 per milliliter. £320 for a can.
They had pineapple cocktails. I think they were upwards of £10, which put me off quite quickly.
There'll be cans as well.
Oh no, Katie got one. That's Pine Hamilton, isn't it? There's a bar.
No, this was in the trade area.
No.
So in the trade area, they had a little food village, and this little lady was in a little van with like a drop back and just doing a little stall there. I'm sure it's a little van anyway, but it's a very small stall, and you could just get a literal pineapple with obviously a cocktail or a mocktail in it.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is I did spend 18 quid on a pizza. It was really nice, but it wasn't 18 quid's worth.
No,
Jesus.
But you go to these places and you are going to get done on the food. And I think we had this conversation last year because I went to Word Superbike at Donington. I didn't pay any more or any less when I was buying food there than I did at Silverstone. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's too expensive. It's expensive, but it's kind of expected. I think.
So Ryan, that's the sort of the negative part of the punter's perspective, which we couldn't have started the pod with the positive side. God, it's obvious we have to start with the negative. We're whinging Yorkshiremen. What were the things about being at Silverstone
that shut up the people that slam it too much? Because some people do go over the top, don't they?
Yeah. So the viewing was still good. You get people saying, "Oh, well, you're so far away." I mean, I stood at Stowe Corner, and I was actually there when Marquez's engine gave out. I don't think I could be that quick. Yeah, so he come into Stowe.
Yeah.
Bop, bluh. It was like, oh, that sounded a bit odd. And he just coasted down to the pits as you saw. But seeing those guys hitting, I think it's close to 200 mile an hour at the end of that straight, chucking the leg out, slamming on the anchors, and then chucking it, insane. Absolutely insane. You forget how fast they are.
It's an amazing place to watch us, Stowe. I love watching.
We don't do it often enough.
I think we've watched a MotoGP session at Stowe before. I think we've watched a Moto3 session there, but I don't think.
No, you're right. We've always walked past it, and Moto3's been on.
Yeah.
But you're right. We haven't, especially going to. You're right. 210 they're touching there. Some of them, and hitting the brakes, the leg goes out as you say. Yeah.
I stood right next to it watching it.
Yeah.
And they also opened the Silverstone 6 grandstand, so I can't remember if that was open last year. I want to say it wasn't, but that was open to general admission, and that was easy to get to from the trade area. So they did think about that in that, there's going to be a lot of people in there, so it's a grandstand they can get to quickly. And you can see a lot. I took a video because I couldn't quite believe how much I could see. Yes, you're far away. You have got a high vantage point, but I can see Maggots through to the end of Beckett's and Chapel, where they go onto the Hanger Straight.
Yep.
And I can also see the whole of Village, the Loop, and onto the Wellington Straight. There's quite a lot of action that goes there.
To the quite a lot there, yeah.
Where I've seen videos of people in that stand where they got Marquez crashing on one lap and they go and show Bez coming the other way. It's like...
It's brilliant.
Nice.
Fantastic.
It's good. Yeah.
The organisation was very good. Getting in and out was very quick. Parking was, as straightforward as ever. I get there's less people there. And Silverstone are at the beck and call of the local landowners because they own no parking around the circuit. So the fact that was so still well organised for such little numbers, fair play to them. Every morning we're straight in, not really having to queue, and same for getting out.
Yeah.
obviously, it's a great time just watching the bikes. I don't think there's ever going to be a day when I sit there and think, do you know what, this is really miserable watching MotoGP bikes around a track. I think
even
if that
Saturday
ever comes,
in 2023, we were like, "This is still brilliant." I'm so cold.
Still good though. Yeah.
And
Icicles hanging off my tash.
Yeah.
In August.
And I think, they're still opening stands for free. So there was no general admission plus this year. It was, if you had a ticket, you could get in. Because I saw people say, if they open the stands up to everyone, it'd be fine. Stands were open. You could get into a stand if you so wanted to. And there's obviously the ones that were reserved. So fair play to them. I think they are listening. There are some things they can't help with. Obviously, the less people that attend, the cost is never going to come down because there's still that hosting fee. It still costs money to put an event on, and just having a surge of people on a Sunday isn't going to help them because they have to pre-plan. Obviously, the parking, the actual road, not closures, but they go like one way into the circuit and everything else. So they have to put that in place, and that's generally something done in advance. I'd like to see more of a push to market it next year. Obviously, Jimmy, I was quite disappointed when you sent me the text of TNT sort of giving a bit of a bad rap to Silverstone. I think that's pretty poor. TNT are a major stakeholder in this that have got to push the British Grand Prix more. And I think they are open to suggestions. I think if you could get in front of them and say, you know what, open a stand for a family, do bike club stands. You've got plenty of Facebook groups with 1,000+ members in. Give them a whole stand. Just say, you sell the ticket, this is how much we want from it, away you go. Then all of a sudden, it's more of a festival. You can go around there.
That's a great idea, mate.
Just
there is loads of fan groups that you can join with thousands of members.
Just do something different. Just think,
outside the box.
Make each section something, because there's enough space and they didn't use it. This was what will really depress you both. In the back of Beckett's, so I walked from one end to the other. Obviously, you got the escapade bar. There was, at the very end of it, one drink trailer, one burger trailer.
You're joking.
Nope. I thought there wasn't anything there till I got to the end and saw it, just as you walk onto the straight. Yeah. Two trailers total.
Can you imagine how angry I'd be if I realised there was only one bloody beer van for that entire section?
There was loads of picnic benches, fair enough, but that's all that was there. So, I know you need somewhere to sit, but by all means, put something else in the back of there. They don't run the buses anymore, so take all the space. You can do something with that space. You really could.
Go on, sorry. I was going to say that I saw during the MotoGP race, I saw one bus running, but that was
to the paddock
down the Hamilton Straight. So I'm guessing that's the only internal buses that do that. Is that going back from the back and forth from the paddock? Is it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Double decker thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. The green buses.
Yeah. So, but I mean, for F1 they'll have to because there's demand there. But one thing annoys me is
you'd be able to move around with the buses in the F1 because there's so much space going. You're pushing everyone onto the roadways, so moving around there. I don't know how they're going to do it, guys. It's
no.
The space isn't there.
For MotoGP, the space is an issue, which is getting around. The F1 will be a squish, but I couldn't really care less about that because they'll sell out and make a lot of money from it anyway. To be fair, well, I mean, it won't be a record crowd, I don't think, because you can still go and I think they've only just sold out of general admission for the weekend in 2022. They sold out of general admission in January.
Yeah.
But the stands are ridiculously expensive. But back to MotoGP, you see it on the warm-up lap. You see it on so many areas. You see like the grandstands around the back last corner, like your club. That's fairly full still. Hamilton's, Abbey, it's all full because everyone just goes there. That's where it's all focused. But then people don't know, like we know, that Silverstone don't open most of these stands for MotoGP. So, because that's not common knowledge, unless you've been, people watching think, there's no one in there. Yeah, because it isn't open. It really, really irritates me. And then, people like me have got to be like, yes, because it isn't open. But they weren't to know that. And you see, the worst was where everyone used to pack to is with Woodcote. Now that used to be, it is a great place to watch MotoGP. You see so much. You see Hamilton, you see Brooklands, Luffield, and acceleration, and the short shift, the classic short shift through Woodcote, and it was dead. It was absolutely dead. You see those groups of a couple and another couple, maybe 3 people, and that was it. Oh no!
And then people have been there before and know where to go and watch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Yeah, so that is a shame. We went back onto negative there, didn't we? But yeah, I'm sorry, folks, that I went straight onto negative.
The thing is overall, I think Silverstone was fantastic. If you were sat on your ass at home, with just chilling out, that was great. It was really fantastic for that. But because Silverstone is our home Grand Prix, we absolutely have to pick it apart because it's obviously failing. We have just had two of the most popular and two of the most attended for spectators Grand Prix. We've had Le Mans and we've had Jerez, which are just
couldn't be further opposite, could
they? And those two, they're record numbers every single year. I swear to God, ever since Fabio Quartararo won in 2021 at the World Championship, Le Mans just exploded. Le Mans always been cool, and I love how they say, the commentators say, "Oh, it's like a Glastonbury vibe," that sort of thing.
That's a power.
Glastonbury.
Brilliant.
And Jerez, in both tracks, you can hear the crowd going when there's a battle and that sort of thing. And at Silverstone, it's sort of like it's a bit like going back to Qatar.
Yeah. The only time I heard
when you're watching it on TV, I did hear the fans at one point.
I did, yeah. Was it also? I don't know if you won't have heard it, obviously. It depends where you sat for race day. But when I think it was the last lap battle for third place in the MotoGP race, you could pick up the fans like getting excited as
As Morbidelli passed Marquez.
Yeah.
That was when it was. It was when Morbidelli passed Marquez, and I did hear a bit of a.
Yeah, and you think, oh, there it is.
Like, oh, nice.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm curious if that is the track mics though, because in we were in Luffield and Zarco pulled a move around the inside on someone that got quite a big applause. And all shouting and cheering. Obviously, again, when Fabio had an issue, we saw it. It was literally in front of him coming into Luffield, as you saw on the telly. There was a lot of it, and there was a lot of reaction even when it's on the TV screen. So whether they don't always pipe it through, I'm not sure. Because Luffield's definitely louder than you hear on the telly.
Right.
So I don't know if that's going to do it. Like last year when Dixon won, I think Luffield was bouncing, but I don't remember hearing anything.
Right. Okay. So I hope there's no tomfoolery with the mics, but I've sat at race day at Luffield before. It's great. It's a shame that that's not the last section anymore. But to be fair, I like the new last section.
I think we've always sat at Luffield.
Apart from 23, didn't we? In 20, we moved. We changed it up because it is good at club. If you can get a good spot at club, you can see quite a lot, and that's when you'll see the last lap moves breaking into Vale heavily. Moto3 race, watching it there is outrageously fun.
I'm very, very aware, Brian, that we need to let you go so that you can go off to your football.
Yes.
But just really, really quickly, I just wanted to touch very, very briefly, and we're going to touch more on this after Ryan's gone as well, because obviously we need to get going and do stuff. But the comment, we briefly touched on it already, the comment that Susie Perry made about this is great for racing, but Silverstone is not one for the spectators. I mean, that was such a hammer blow. To trying to build up Silverstone. I know that we've had the discussion already about how things have been taken away from the menu and jacket potatoes have been added and all that sort of stuff. But when you've got the home of bike racing, owned by a British company, Discovery, and all that sort of stuff. And then we've got one of the main one of the main commentators.
One of the face, big face.
The compare of Silverstone for British interests, basically saying it's not for the spectators. I mean, do you think it was just one of those things that she just said and then immediately regretted, but you can't go back on this live TV?
Well, I mean, you didn't hear that, but I had a text, didn't I? But at the same time, it was. I know that she didn't say it's bad for Silverstone. Well, that bit's kind of correct. If you're talking from a general perspective of facilities are all there, so that's not really bad. It's the other bits, but she said the viewing's not great for the fans. We know that. And then she was that was Friday. And totally agreed, Sylvan. And then the next day she said it again, Saturday morning, and Michael Laverty was agreeing. I thought, for goodness sake, guys, the viewing isn't the issue at Silverstone at all. It's how many stands are open and other bits and pricing, which we won't go into because we do that every year, and we won't. But I mean, you quite make it now and again with Simon Patson, and he's going to have an interview with Pringle soon, isn't he?
Yes.
Well, allegedly. So, I mean, I'd like to, if you've mentioned any of this to him, I hope you mentioned lots to him in a DM or something, because to ask him questions about the family stands, all of this is really important. I mean, I think you told him on tweet, didn't you, that I told you.
Yeah,
about
I think I
TNT
did. Yeah,
stuff.
because it's important. Like you've got,
It's massively important.
yeah, if you're talking to Stuart Pringle, I have no doubt that Simon and other journalists will be talking to him, because the event overall has been a bit of a flop. They've moved the date back, so that sort of tells you what you need to know there.
Yes.
But I think you can't have the broadcaster saying, Silverstone's bad for viewing, that's supposed to be pushing the sport. You're not going to get anyone else buying into your subscriptions and everything else and coming along, which is going to get them hooked, if you're saying it's crap for viewing. It's
and especially at those prices, people are just going to go, all right, well,
Susie Perry last year said it was.
We'll watch Silverstone on TV, but we'll go to Assen.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they did it, so they get more people watching it on TNT.
Yeah.
Can I just add something that really does wind me up about that?
you right.
So,
but I'm hoping he does say something. I want to keep you on, Ryan. We'd love to give you another 45 minutes if we could, but we realise you've got to go. So if you got to go, fine.
Yeah, I'll just leave with this one statement, because this is one thing that I'll never forget.
Yeah,
so obviously,
please,
I've been watching for quite some time, and it's always been. No, it was BBC first, and it was BT Sport quite early on, and obviously Susie Perry took over it from that point. I remember watching the broadcast, and they were always, "Oh yeah, get yourself down to Silverstone. Next race going to be fantastic. This, that, and the other."
Yes.
Do I remember that at the end of Le Mans? No, I remember. Oh yes, British Grand Prix next, but I don't remember the buzz for it. And unless you've got the broadcasters creating that, you're not going to have it. I mean, Sky create the perfect FOMO effect for the British Grand Prix.
Yeah.
To Discovery? Arguably not. No. And they are the only ones that are going to push this any further. Silverstone have got their own stuff to do. They've got the racing product. That's the key thing. We already know it does good racing. It's now getting people through the front door, and you need the broadcasters' help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there was absolutely no help whatsoever from TNT for that. No. I mean, yes, we got amazing coverage, but let's not forget that the TNT coverage that we see is just the live feed from Dorna.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly. Obviously, we do get stuff like if behind the scenes stuff. Had we still just been with Dorna with the MotoGP.com app, all sorts of stuff, we wouldn't have seen Richard Hammond. We wouldn't because that was fantastic. By the way, I love that. We wouldn't have seen all the stuff that they do where they're in the paddock and they're doing interviews there, because it's just commentary with the MotoGP stuff.
Yeah.
So TNT do it a lot better when it comes to that. The commentary is all right as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was really let down by a couple of snide comments by Susie Perry. I know that we're here slagging off, but we're a fucking podcast. We're not the official.
MotoGP podcast. Sorry,
we're not the official.
Not when you've got the majority of the audience viewing you. We can say what's bad and what needs to improve, but overall,
this is what we're doing.
I had a fantastic time. It's not like I've come home grumpy. I still really enjoyed the racing, and bloody hell, what a race we did have. Yeah. But anyway, I've got to love you and leave you, gents.
Yeah,
it's been
you
a pleasure
enjoy
as always.
Ryan,
good luck with the rest of the show.
Much. Have a wonderful evening, mate. Thank
Cheers.
you so much for joining us. And thank you, mate.
Take it easy, mate.
Cheers, man.
So thanks to Ryan again for joining us, and we'll move on to the racing now. But just to reflect really quickly on that, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who said something or tweeted or added on Instagram. Susie Perry, I think she's got, and TNT Sports Bikes have their own Instagram as well. So I can't imagine.
I think it's absolutely dire.
I mean, I think that's bad. That's bad form from TNT.
Yeah.
Someone surely has told Pringle, if he doesn't know about it, I'll be gobsmacked.
She's basically just said to everybody, don't bother coming next year.
Yeah.
Just watch it on TV. Just watch it on TNT Sports. Don't bother coming next year.
We need the ratings.
It's shit. But the thing is that it would be absolutely fine if Susie Perry was somebody like us, where we're sort of like picking apart punter's perspective, all that sort of stuff. But if you are the main commentary, you have got to be plugging the event. Otherwise, we will lose. We will lose not just Silverstone as a venue. We will lose a British Grand Prix or Grand Prix of the United Kingdom.
Yes.
We will lose the British Grand Prix because it's dropping every single year. The only reason that there was a 90,000 audience, 100,000 audience, whatever it was in 2021, was because Rossi was retiring.
Yeah, yeah.
And it had just been announced. I would love to see that year what the ticket sales were prior to Mazzano when he announced his retirement.
I think they probably would have been high. Well, he's been higher now because we had Cal standing in for Maverick Vinales and Dixon, so we would have still had a good crowd. Yeah. But also, we would have also had a better crowd had Silverstone had more notice because they'd have opened up more stands.
It is bizarre when you think about it. 2021, Dixon standing in for Vinales, essentially.
Well, yeah, Cal was on the factory monster Yamaha and replaced Morbidelli, who's injured.
That's it. Sorry, yes. So we had Fabio Quartararo and Cal Crutchlow
on the monster Yamahas. That's right.
Then we had Rossi on the Petronas Yamaha and Jake Dixon.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre.
Yeah.
Like if you'd put that this year now, it'd just be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's bizarre. I mean, it was one of those sort of like, it was like a temporary passport, right? Yeah. Wasn't it? You know. It's a bit sort of like what they did with Max Cook in Moto 3.
Yeah.
They just sort of bumped him in there and went, "Nah, that'll do." Because Eddie O'Shea said, "Oh, let's do that. Let's get don't bother getting Tatsuki Suzuki.
Galavata, yeah, he would have.
Let's get Max Cook."
Yeah,
and they did, and it wasn't dreadful. It was where we expected it to be. We're going to talk about the racing now because I think that's the important thing to do.
Yeah.
We've talked about the Pontus perspective, which is fantastic. Thank you very much, Ryan, for that. And now, I would genuinely put this as not just the best race weekend of the year in terms of quality of all 4 races, or 3.5 races, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't just put this as the best this year. I'd put it the best probably last couple of years.
Yeah,
I'd put it. I'm trying to think of a race weekend where I enjoyed all 3 or 3.5 races as much as I did. I really enjoyed the sprint, and for me, the sprints recently have been a bit more in sort of contention of boringness compared to the actual main race itself. Usually, when it all started off in 2023 with the sprints, I always thought the sprints were the most exciting thing because it was just hideous and crazy and dangerous.
Yeah.
It was a bit sort of like, ooh, we're seeing a bit of nastiness now for the riders.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's sort of gone the opposite way around, and now the main race is definitely more exciting than the sprint. But I really, really enjoyed the sprint. I thought Gian Antonio was just sublime. It was just brilliant. I really, really enjoyed that from him. And yes, it was a bit of a peculiar podium. I love a peculiar podium, and it was a peculiar starting grid as well. Let's not forget we've got 3 Fabios in a row. We've got Jerez, Le Mans, and Silverstone now. 3 podiums in a row.
3 poles.
Sorry, 3 podiums. 3 poles in a row,
and that's 3 pole records as well.
3 pole is insane.
Yeah.
And we've not had a Ducati take pole for 3
yeah, that's a long time.
Which is ridiculous when you think about it. But the most entertaining races this weekend, definitely, and lots and lots of weird little stats here and there that I'm going to flood you with and that sort of thing. Obviously, the Sunday race was just bizarre. We had the last couple of race weekends, we've had Fabio Quartararo on pole. Yeah. We've seen him do really well and then as soon as the classic Marquez's tyres activate after a few laps, and he gets chimed in, and then it's all like, see you later, Fabio. Sorry, mate. Yeah, you did a great job, but I'm off now. Yeah. That sort of thing, and see Fabio check out like he did, just like, see you later, guys. I'm off. Ridiculously that he had, absolutely ridiculous, and that was obviously aided by a lot of battles going on before, further down and that sort of thing. It was absolutely unbelievable, and obviously Pecco crashing as well.
Thing is that looking at him in those opening laps, I could almost see it coming. It's so
you can tell
uncomfortable. So
you can
uncomfortable.
tell with Pecco so well. You can tell with him that he's just not. It's. I tell you who he's a bit like, and it might just be because we're British and we watch Jake, but you can tell when Jake is not going to do well on the weekend. Qatar, for example,
talk themselves into a bad weekend. All this happens. Yeah,
this weekend's going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
So yeah, there we are.
They might as well. They don't say, but they might as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pecco did not look comfortable at all. But you were saying about we'll talk about we'll talk about quality, but you talk about the uncomfortability of Pecco at the front. I could see that coming. I thought that Mark would crash in that main race again. After that first crash, he did not look comfortable. He obviously wasn't as fast as Alex in the sprint. An amazing performance from Alex Marquez in the sprint. That's 2 sprint wins. He's at Silverstone in the last 3 visits. But what I was going to get to, you mentioned Fabio, is that yes, he did pull the pin in everyone, but I don't think. Really, I mean, look, if Marquez hadn't crashed, you could say maybe it knocked his confidence a bit. I just thought, oh shit, if I don't bring it home in this race, Alex is back right with me on terms of points for the championship. And Pecco, if he gets in the podium, and I've had a DNF, so you could maybe argue Mark wouldn't have been that far up in the race. But looking at Fabio Quartararo's lap times, he was increasing his pace. He wasn't just hanging fire. He was a bit to obviously save some tyre, but Fabio was unbelievable.
It was incredible.
That gap would have been, if you won, that would have been, and that gap was maintained, that would have been a bigger margin of win that Marquez has had since he joined Factory Ducati.
Well, it's not going back to the bloody night. It's going back to the 500 days.
It was
it's going back to McDoing, where there's 40 seconds that covers the entire podium.
Yes, a lot of the time.
Thing. I'm obviously exaggerating there. So, I'm going to do something I don't usually do, but Jimmy and I weren't watching the race together. We were watching it at the same time, but in different houses. So Sunday for me, classic Sunday for me, that I can't get off work because the landlord's on holiday. So I watched Moto2 at work. I got the pub set up, I was all ready to go, and I was like, right, cool. 11 o'clock on the dot, there I was, watching Moto2. And it was great. And then relief came in at 12 o'clock, and I was like, right, fuck, I need to get home in an hour. And I need to go and pick the dog up and all sorts. And my mother-in-law gave me a lift home, which is really, really kind of her. Fantastic, thank you, Tracy. Not that you're watching. And, I got home, ready, made myself some food, and then we were watching the race together, but not in the same room, not in the same house. So we did a bit of a dialogue, and the amount, because I was just sort of thinking to myself, it'd be really cool if sort of just, we could talk about the race together, but not be in the same room and that sort of thing. And there was a lot of us talking about, when the red flag went out at the first race start on Sunday, and I was saying, another weekend where something odd happens and no one knows what to do. You're thinking back to Kota, where the Marc Marquez grid disappearance that he had, he legged it off the grid. I was like, well, this is another race weekend. Yes, another race weekend where race direction is sort of like, fuck. What do we do? What do we do? And so it was a bit like that. So that's what I was saying too. And then you said the big loser here is Quartararo.
I did, yeah.
And this is obviously, during the red flag. The red flag's still out. I think pit lane had just opened. So the big loser here is Quartararo. The big winners, obviously, were the Marquez brothers. And just want to say, if you're one of these people that genuinely believes that the Holocaust didn't exist and that 9/11 was an inside job, you're also the sort of person that says that the Marquez brothers, that Dorna stopped the race to allow the Marquez brothers to restart.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. It is so stupid, and you can sort of look at these profiles and of course you think that.
Yeah, of course you do that. Barry from Barnsley with his BMW in his profile picture. Yeah, shut up.
Even he's probably not that bad. But I have actually written a question for you here, Alex. I've actually said that the lap 3 then red flag. Can you you can restart the spare bike rule? I've worded it shit. It's just a note. But this rule where you can restart the race on your spare bike if 3 laps haven't been, or below 3 laps have been completed.
In this case, it was 1.5.
Yeah. So they were able to restart. Is this a good or bad rule?
It's a good rule. It's an absolutely fair
You
rule.
like it, yeah?
Right. Okay. So I'm going to put my case forward for this. MotoGP teams, every single MotoGP rider has 2 bikes.
Yeah.
Why do they have 2 bikes? 2 reasons. Flag to flag race.
Yeah.
So they can they can look at the weather and go, ooh, don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
Right, dry bike, wet bike.
Yeah,
cool.
exactly, yeah.
Then you have it where a race is red flagged.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if a race is red flagged, it's because the track conditions are too bad, or because a rider is injured, or there is debris on the track, all that sort of stuff, right? You then say, okay, oil has been spilled on the track. Everyone that crashed before that oil went down, or whatever, is not allowed to rejoin the race. So hang on a minute, it's not their fault that a lap and a half in.
Yeah.
You know, yes, they crashed, but at the end of the day, the conditions went treacherous. And I really do think, I know it sounds ridiculous. I know it. A lot. The argument is that you crashed out of the first race start, therefore you should be allowed to rejoin.
Yeah, and it was their own mistake.
It's their own mistake. And now all they're going to do is learn from the mistake, which was the really obvious situation was Alex Marquez crashing out of the entry to the first corner and went straight off. And then we watched him in the race restart, where he was so much more cautious going into the first corner. And he learned from that. But at the end of the day, the rules are the rules. And if 3 laps haven't been completed, then the riders, as long as they can get themselves back to pit lane in time for pit lane open, then they can restart the race. And I do not think that's unfair at all. I understand where people are coming from when they say, yeah, but if you crashed out, then you've crashed out. That's your weekend over. But hang on a minute. You know, you spent all this time practicing for this weekend, getting yourself ready for it, spending all the time on the bike, doing well in qualifying, all that sort of stuff. And then you crash, and then the whole race gets halted. You're like, okay, I'm not allowed to restart. I'm back in the garage. I can carry on. I'm fine. I'm not injured. I need to change my leathers, but why shouldn't they be allowed to restart? They've got 2 fucking bikes.
Yeah, and I think but you hit the nail on the head for the argument against. Where you say you can understand people. Obviously, there's another reason as well. It's because if you write your bike off in practice, if you had one, if you really write it off, you need the other bike for qualifying, things like that. But I get it. So I heard Peter Bond was saying as well. It's not, it's not fair because like the Marquez brothers crashed on their own accord, their own error, and they get another go at it, and Marquez gets a podium. Where in actual fact he wouldn't have even finished the race, but then but it was only, as you said, a lap and a half, 2 laps, and it's as if that race never happened.
Yes,
and there was
you erase that race.
Yeah,
and if you've got a second bike to use, that's what the second bike's for. Yeah. And you wouldn't be able to do it in Moto 2, you wouldn't be able to do it in Moto 3.
No.
But this is a championship, and at the end of the day, these riders are fighting for a championship. They're not. Yeah. They're not fighting to just entertain you or me or you or whatever. They're there to win a championship. Yeah. That is their absolute. Yeah. That is their absolute final thing. Yeah. Now, the situation that we could have is that we're missing a quarter of the grid because, if
there was a pile-up,
if there was a pile-up, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Look at Portimao 2023 Moto 2. You've got all those riders that crashed out, and there's more bikes on the Moto 2 grid. All those riders that crashed out, and because of whatever it was, the track conditions, and they all slid off at the same corner at Portimao. Why was no one kicking off about Moto 2 riders that managed to get back to pit lane being allowed to restart?
Yeah, that's just pure because it's Moto 2 and less people care, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also because, and I'll tell you exactly why it is, because the Marquez brothers were allowed to restart, all these twats are saying it's not fair. It is fair. It is completely
it's the same
fair.
for everyone. And plus, a lot of people, if it worked in Fabio, if you were a Fabio fan or a Bez fan or a Zacco fan, whoever that aren't the Marquez brothers, you probably wouldn't say it.
Also, if you really care that much about it, why don't you get into a job for IRTA or for the FIM stewards, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Why don't you write the rule book? The rules are the rules. The rules are not unfair, and they're right. And
there we go. That's
it
my
works.
answer then.
I'm not like one of these people that's like, oh, I love Marquez and Rossi's a dick.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people because I don't fucking care, because I enjoy the sport itself. Marquez wins, I'm happy. If Marquez doesn't win, I'm happy. I don't care.
Yeah.
But the rules are the rules. They've been put into place by professionals who know what they're doing. If you don't like the rules, don't watch the fucking sport. Simple.
Yeah.
The rules were all followed.
Sounds like a cop out, but I'm a little bit on the fence, but I am more that the rules fine, because at the end of the day, it could have worked in Fabio's favour to restart, or anyone's favour if it was the other way around. So yeah, fair enough. And in the end, I said he was the big loser. He wasn't in the end. Fabio romped off, and that brings us to his agony of having the ride height device
jam on,
and that really does. So it's not. I was thinking, Tam, is that like the first nail in the coffin to it being banned before 27? Probably not.
No, it happened to Maverick Vinales at
not the first time it happened,
Sachsenring,
but the first time it happened when it ruined
ruined
an obvious
race
win.
bad.
An obvious race win by, I would say.
It's happened before. The ride height device jamming on, and not being able to disengage it.
Yeah.
And the only one that I can pull out of my arse is Maverick Vinales. I think it was either Assen or Sachsenring.
Yeah, I feel like
it was either Assen or Sachsenring. 2023, and he wasn't leading the race, but he was piling through, and looked like he could easily get on the podium. He was like P4 or so, or P3, and he went out of a left-hand turn, and the bike was still sunk. And it was just like, what the fuck's going on? And it was one of those things where that was when everyone was like, oh, Vinales has actually matured. Like, he's gone back to the garage and not thrown his weight around. And Bill was like, oh, fuck you guys also. So he went back to the garage and was just like, shit happens. But obviously that wasn't the case with Fabio, because he was leading the race. Could have won his first race in 3 years, 4 years. Yeah. 3 years.
I hope it happens this year now. If it doesn't happen this year, this is
got to. It's got to. His form of qualifying at the moment is incredible.
Yeah.
And we're at tracks that Fabio was amazing at in 2021.
Yeah.
We've got Sachsenring coming up soon, and he's always been amazing at Sachsenring.
I don't think he'll get pole at Aragon. I think that'll be hard. Mark will win in Aragon, I think.
Yeah.
If he doesn't crash. We didn't really touch the crash he had. I mean, I know it's a bit of a non-race now, but that crash was a bit daft. Like, he keeps doing this during races. Now, Mark's now lost more races than he's won this year.
Yeah.
And if that's stuck, that would be getting daft from someone who's clearly the best rider in the world, on clearly the best bike still. But yeah, Fabio could be an opponent towards the end of the year. You won't catch him on points, sadly, folks. Sorry to be that boring sod. But I think Fabio can get pole, definitely, like places like Assen, Sachsenring, Brno with the fast-flowing corners. There's not a 200-mile-an-hour straight.
This is what we need for Fabio. We and he need fast-flowing tracks.
Yeah.
Jello.
I mean, it's always done. That's why he's
imagine if he makes Pecco look a fool at Magello.
Yeah, well, it's entirely possible unless Pecco manages to slipstream in the line. That's the one thing that annoys me. On one lap pace, it's only Fabio can do this. Like the other three of the Yamahas cannot ride how he's riding that bike yet. So it's not just a general.
He is the most experienced on the Yamaha. Yeah. I remember saying in 2021 when we were watching him at Silverstone, look how smooth he is.
Yeah.
You and I were both saying that. Like, look how smooth compared to the rest of the. Yeah. Compared to the rest of the field.
Borderline looking slow. Like Lorenzo looked slow a lot of the time. He was so slow, taking a really wide entry that no one else did to sweep through. So you had all the room for the exit of the corner more than anyone else. And that last sector, I don't know if it was his pole lap. It might have been another session where he that's right. It was one of his laps where he found 3.5 tenths in the last sector, which is basically Vale Club and the exit of Stowe. And it was weird. It looked perfect. It looked slow. It looked really slow. But yeah, I mean, but back to his agony.
He never looks aggressive.
No, when he's really pushing to keep up. Back end of 21, he was riding. Wasn't riding the Yamaha normally. He was trying to keep up with Pecco all the time because it wasn't the best bike anymore. But usually, you're right. When he's comfortable, he looks slow. But his agony, Alex. I mean, that was awful seeing. He kept trying to disengage it. Then he was crying in the pit straight, and then he had his head in his hands. And then obviously Tom, his manager's calming him down.
The worst thing,
he burst out into tears in the press conference.
Oh man! It was just genuinely awful. And I remember watching, and obviously when there's a runaway race leader, there's very little attention paid to them.
Yeah.
And so
exactly,
Fabio had sodded off, and I texted you. This is what I wanted to say earlier on.
Yes.
I texted you.
Yeah.
Saying, I am so nervous for Fabio right now.
Yeah.
Because he was doing so well.
Yeah.
And it was at that point where he just started to back off a little bit.
Yeah.
He was playing it really, really well. And he was doing such an amazing job. Because you remember when Zarco at Le Mans was leading by like fucking 82 minutes. And
yeah, he was.
They were, all the commentators on TNT were just like, I think it was Hodgie. He was like, I just want to go into LCR and just say to him, just calm down. You're leading by so much, that sort of thing. But with Fabio, he was so cool. He was so cool.
Yeah.
He was still putting in really, really decent times, but he wasn't doing what Zarco was doing at Le Mans, which was lap record, race lap record, constantly.
Yeah.
And it was like, calm down. But with Fabio, it was just like, I'm so nervous for him because he's doing everything absolutely fucking perfectly, but this shouldn't be happening.
No.
So what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Lo and behold, it all went tits up.
Yeah.
But that was it, and genuinely, like, because obviously they're not focusing on Fabio at all, really. There's a little box.
You got the box at the top left.
Little box at the top left of the screen, which is like, this is what Fabio's doing right now. So you can't even see. It's literally on my TV.
To be fair, that's where Mark crashed.
On your TV, it's probably great, but on my TV, it's like literally just like an ant crawling across the screen. It's like, it doesn't fucking matter because it's.
That's when Mark crashed. Neil Hodgson went, "Oh, Mark, get it down!" I was like, "What? Oh, yeah,
that sort of thing. Yeah. It's like, never mind, because they can't obviously they. Definitely TNT commentators can't control it, and even the commentators for MotoGP can't control it. But where it was like, they went back to Fabio, and he was sort of like, I was like, and my first thought was, is there something on the track?
Yeah.
Is it, this is a bit like, when it starts raining in a fighter flag, and the riders put their hands up like, no, this is too much, we're out. And then, we've seen it a few times where the riders all sort of bail out. So I wondered, maybe there's something on the track that Fabio's seen. And then I started thinking to myself, because what's going on? Because I couldn't really see it. And all these thoughts start racing through your mind, like, right, what's going on? And one of the first things that raced into my mind was, does he think that he's over a certain distance now? And he's trying to get the race red flagged. He's seen a fly on the racing line. I mean, he knows that his tyre's fucked.
Yeah.
So he needs to stop the race. I
was hoping it was that, just for a split second. I was like, something's wrong.
Yeah, but I also wasn't hoping it was that, because that would be really embarrassing and really, really laggy as well. But obviously it wasn't. It was the fact that
something wrong with something on the track, or gesticulating. It's something that, like, I don't know, that there's a dog's managed to get on site or something like that.
Shat on the track. A dog has shat on the racing line. I was like, oh, that's convenient. I've completed enough laps now. But the thing is, obviously, he hadn't completed enough laps at that point. So that threw it out of the way. I was like, no, surely not.
No.
Technical.
No.
Because the thing is, I thought, he's going to have a really stupid little low side. He's going to ease off too much. Tyres going to get too cold in the high winds that were there on Sunday. Tyres going to get too cold, and he's just going to go.
I have more faith in Fabio to bring it home with a lead like that than Mark has. Mark has got this tendency. Well, Pecco right now, yeah. When the bike's all good, which Pecco, if it happens for him this year, brilliant. But that's more likely to happen to Pecco. I'm saying when the bike's still fine, for Mark it is. Well, this weekend he didn't feel perfectly comfortable. But I've got more faith in Fabio bringing it home and not tucking it, because you backed off too much and the tyres got cold, because they have to manage that anyway. I think Mark is more likely to crash out the lead than Fabio is. But it didn't happen. It was a technical and a crying shame. We won't keep banging on this. You've all seen it. Yeah, a crying shame. And obviously Donna posted the video of him crying at the press conference as well. And thankfully they all said you can go if you need to, and they all clapped. So
there was a lot of crying, and I cried genuinely. I was right. I've had a long streak of shifts. I was very tired. I was quite hungover as well, which I'm and I was watching. And when it happened, I was welling up, and then when I saw him lead the pits, the natural pit straight, and he was there, and Tom, his manager, comes over, and lift up the visor and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
and it was like, I don't know what he was saying to him. It was like,
it was your win.
Do you want a fag? Do you want a fag? That sort of thing. I was bawling. I was like, oh fuck, Fabio, fucking hell, man. Like,
I can't imagine seeing
it's still got a bit in me,
I can't imagine seeing Fabio with a cigarette, actually. But yeah, but no, Crashnet said that.
I reckon he smokes.
Tom, Tom said to him, we know you're the fastest this weekend. No, Crash said they asked him, and what Tom said.
I'd have taken up smoking after that.
And he definitely won't be an hour ago. But no, Tom said basically, you were the fastest. Hello. Yeah. The cat about to go and
hello, yes.
There was basically words exchanged. Look, this was your win. This was yours. Look, this will happen. It's coming. The usual things. It was his win. But it opened up the door for a really important win for Aprilia, who have won their first race since Vinales last year.
And fun stat.
Oh, stat time. Go on.
It is the only time in the modern era where an Italian has won on an Aprilia. Italian bike, Italian rider.
Yeah, lovely.
There we are.
Well, apart from the Catties, but Aprilia, they needed that.
On Aprilia, that's what I said.
But I don't think there was one of the 500s. In 250s and 125s, definitely, with Caparossi and Max Biaggi and whoever. But yeah, I think that will. I don't think Bez is actually rumoured to leave anyway, but that's brilliant. I don't know how Martin would have taken that comment from Aprilia. He probably thought, Fabio had a mechanical blah 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 in his head, and the market has had this and that, the other. But it's still
for those of you who didn't see that, Massimo Rivola said something on the lines of, "Stop crying, Jorge. The bike actually wins races."
Our bike can win.
Our bike can win,
and it can. And to be fair, actually, that bike is always fast at the same time.
But if I was fucking all the rumours going around about Jorge Martin talking about the Marini spot at Honda, but the what happened the other weekend? Oh, a Honda won.
Yeah,
the Honda can win.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you can't use the wet race excuse at Silverstone.
No, you can't.
Bez was great in the sprint. Bez had a great qualifying, bad start in the sprint. Bez could have won the sprint. He went from back down to like 20th and finished in the top 5. So Bez had a brilliant sprint, and he deserved that win. He can't help what happens to Fabio.
No, exactly. And I hate the idea that people actually comment about.
Ifs and buts and pots and
pans. If Fabio didn't have a technical, then he'd just be P2 and no one would care. It's like, shut up.
I mean, you're being a bit of a realist, but you're also
at the end of the day, the thing is, people that say that, right? People that say that sort of thing, at the end of the day, all they care about is the rider, right? Put it this way, Yamaha let Fabio down. Yeah. Yamaha was the reason. This is why the riders always say, oh, we did really well this weekend. Oh, we could have done this week. We could have done this. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if the rider doesn't finish or something like that, it might not be his fault or her fault. It might be something to do with the bike. It might be something to do with the team. Oh, we didn't qualify well this weekend. Jake Dixon. Is that Jake Dixon's fault, or is it Elfmark Vidies's fault?
Yeah, it's a team. It is a team effort,
which is incredible when we actually. We're going to go on to Moto2 in a minute. Which is incredible when we think about it, because when we see Salach and Dixon working together, it's brilliant. It's such a symbiotic relationship. Yeah. Everything comes together. One of them posts a fast lap, and then they swap roles.
Yeah, that used to
and
be
then the other one posts a fast lap.
Honda did that in qualifying, didn't they? As well,
Yeah,
I think
they did. Yeah,
and do you know what?
Marini and Mir were just fucking awesome all weekend.
You don't see the Catty boys do it because they don't need to, but the Hondas are doing it. And,
apart from Boo,
yeah. But the thing is, that used to be stuff you saw in Moto3 predominantly. That was when you had. I remember when a Leopard had 3 bikes or 2 bikes. Some teams they'll send them out together, won't they?
Yeah.
Toe.
The most obvious one was Silverstone 2023. Was when we were watching the Intrafogular RW Racing guys. So it was Baltus and Van der Gorberg. And I remember watching these 2 bright white bikes. Like, you cannot miss them. These 2 bright white bikes, and they were following each other. One was following the other, and they were P1, P2, and then they swapped, and then it reversed P1, P2, and it was like, fucking up. This is the epitome of teamwork. Yeah. It's incredible.
Obviously, in a race, it won't be like that, but it's fine because if you've got yourselves on the front row,
get
front
yourselves
2 rows,
in the
that's where you need to be.
2-3 rows, and you're
sorted. Then once you're there, every man for themselves, team orders that.
The amount of teams where you don't see that happening.
Yeah. Well, I think
for example, in Moto3, where you see Joel Kelso go out on his own.
Yeah. I wonder if Yamaha will start asking. Why would Yamaha start asking Fabio? Okay, why don't you tow Alex?
Why don't you tow Alex? Why don't you tow Jack? Why don't you tow Miguel?
Fabio does love. You can tell he's comfortable again because he's again riding on his own for all the practice. He's like, I'm on my own. I just need to be on my own, And that's what he did back in 21. Remember, I'm on my own. On my own.
He did.
I'll find my own lines. But I think it would be. Pramac as well. Could they get involved with that? I don't know if that's how it works with certain manufacturers. Honda obviously definitely did it in qualifying with the Leish. You had all red Honda Pro, and then the Honda Castrol's red bikes all together, 3 of them.
Yeah.
Zarco wasn't involved in that, but that does bring us on to Zarco. I've written here, form of his life, winning in Le Mans and P2 at Silverstone. Can you imagine trying to bet money on that?
What did I say to you on Saturday? I said, imagine being... no, that's right. I said, what I would give to be a French fan right now.
On the Saturday, yeah.
Not a fan of the French. What I'm saying is, what I would do to be a MotoGP fan from France right now.
Yeah, it is a fantastic time to be a fan.
You've got the 3 pole positions, you've got the amazing form of Zarco in races and sprints, and then you've obviously got the win from Zarco. You've got Fabio leading a race, but obviously I didn't know that at the time on Saturday. But on Saturday, I was like, fuck me. Imagine being a Frenchman right now. Yeah, it must be amazing at the moment.
Yeah, it's the best time to be a French fan, best time to be French involved in the sport. I think largely to the promoter of the French GP, yes, but obviously, you've got Fabio back on the top of his game. I think next year, title contender.
The thing is what's so nice about the whole thing is that it's always been brilliant to be a Spanish fan. It's always been fantastic to be an Italian fan. There was a time where it was great to be an American fan or an Australian fan. It was always really, really good. There were times where it was great to be a British fan. And what's really great at the moment is that we have such a strong nest of French riders. And we only have 2. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
Because, and this is something that I was thinking about during the Le Mans, during the French Grand Prix, was we used to have Lorenzo Fallon for Moto3, who was for CIP Green Power. He never kept his seat. He was a bit naff.
Yeah.
But for Moto2, Moto3, there's no French interest whatsoever.
No, not at the moment. No.
And then you've got 2 French riders in MotoGP, which is amazing. But then you've got the opposite thing when it comes to being British. You've got at Silverstone, we had 3 British riders in Moto3.
Yeah.
We had Eddie O'Shea, Scott Ogden, and Max Cook. And then you had Jake Dixon, obviously, in Moto2. And then obviously we used to have it where we had Josh Watley, Scott Ogden, we used to have Sam Lowes and Jake Dixon.
Yeah.
And there was always loads of British interest. But what's mental is Le Mans attracts crazy amounts of spectators, but they've only got 2 riders in the entire paddock. Yeah. But they just happen to be in MotoGP, so that makes it.
And do you know what?
better.
They don't really right now. They don't need anyone else. They need them coming through. That's the important thing, though, because Zarco won't be. Zarco will, at this rate, he might see 30. He'd be 38 in 4 years' time and still be racing MotoGP. I hope he is. Fabio, if he's a career, want to stay in here forever, then brilliant. But
he's about 12, so we've got him for a while.
Yeah. So injuries come into play. Injuries do come into play in this sport, and the French.
But how many times we I don't think we've ever seen Fabio Quartararo sit out a race for injury. He's not a crasher.
He doesn't have massive high sides. That's why.
Apart from Silverstone 2021.
Yeah. Not
during practice?
Yeah, it was practice Friday afternoon.
Friday afternoon.
Yeah,
it was like practice too. He high-sided and
mid-corner.
And I would have taken the rest of my life off racing if I had the crash that he had. The bike flipped upside down. He was flying through the air and landed legs first on the upside down bike. Bang!
Yeah.
We were sat there, weren't we?
Yeah.
We were sat at the Vale chicane.
Yeah.
And because I thought he's running wide into this corner, and then tried to save it, and snap, loses the rear end, lands on top of the upside down bike, and I was like, that couldn't have been a worse thing to have happened to a man. And he limped away like.
We didn't see that where he landed in person until we saw the slow-mo on the big screen. It
was just like his testes have just exploded.
Yeah.
But apart from that, we very, very, very rarely see Fabio crash
that way. Yeah. In general, actually.
And it's something to think about the Yamaha, to be honest, because the Yamaha always used to be a really smooth cornering bike. They've now got the issue of the rear chatter and all that sort of stuff, but
having the Marmarini engine, I think I'm saying that right, it is definitely benefited them, having that new horsepower. And I love that little tweak of the front wing that they had at Silverstone. Because obviously they have the front wing on the Yamaha goes like that, but it went like that. Just a tweak, just that extra bit of downforce. And
also to send a bit more air to the sides of the bike.
Yeah.
Because when you're trying to corner, you want to have stability. And when you're trying to go into a corner, you've got the issues that they have on corner entry and corner exit, which is
for high-speed corners anyway. Because obviously downforce is sod all really. Speed, but
so you've got aero that is pushing air to the sides of the bike, not just downforce doesn't mean anything. The sides of the bike, you don't want your ass to be going like that when you're going. 150 miles an hour around the corner.
Fabio was doing last year when he was fighting the bike and it had a balance.
And you could see it, and when it was trail braking, you'd see the arse going like it was like a bear scratching against a tree.
A balloon.
Fucking jungle VIP.
Anyway, brilliant. So it was good.
I'm the king of analogies on this podcast. I think if there's ever an analogy to have, just ask me. I'll do it for you.
You missed out. You missed out a pun there, though. It's disappointing. Oh no, that's King Louis, King of.
King of the Swingers, though.
Anyway, we've not got much battery left, so we're going to move on to Jake. Jake touched on that, Alex. Alex, shut up.
Where shut up. Me?
Alex, shut up. Alex touched on
for
Jake
God's sake.
Dixon.
Yes.
Now, Alex sent me a post from the Jake Dixon fans group about a long lap penalty. He was given a 3-second penalty instead. Do you remember this?
Yes. So if you look at the Moto2 results for the British Grand Prix,
yep.
you've got Jake Dixon down in P11, and to everyone that was paying attention at the British Grand Prix, to the only British rider in Moto2, you're going to be looking at Jake Dixon, and he finished in 9th place.
Yeah.
However, he finished technically in 11th, and this was to do with
time penalty.
The time penalty,
3 seconds, which is a chunk in Moto2 when the races are like that.
Yeah. Well, it's not a 16-second penalty like we're getting like for tyre pressure in MotoGP.
Yeah.
But he was given a 3-second penalty.
But it wasn't picked up on, and I didn't even know he was doing it. Any irresponsible riding, that wasn't picked up by any commentary. And I'm sorry, but
even after the race, I mean, obviously, when we see after the flag and when we get checkered flag, so after the flag for MotoGP.com, and we get all that sort of stuff. They don't focus on Moto2 really that much, and there was nothing in there about it. So, as far as we were all concerned, I think even when Jake put out his social media post about finishing in P9, he still didn't know that that's what had actually happened. He's actually P11.
So that time penalty was sort of under the radar, which is a shame really, because not getting a top 10 after the year he's had, and he's still. Well,
why did it happen again?
Irresponsible riding.
But
again, that wasn't really touched on. If you look at the Moto2 race, Alex, look at the sorry, beg your pardon, Moto2 standings. That's MotoGP. So Moto2 standings, he is indeed still P3 because Gonzalez crashed with that incident with, was it Van der Gerberg?
No, Baltus.
Baltus, beg your pardon. I'm getting confused with old teammates there, I should say.
Yeah. Baltus,
and I think that was Gonzalez. I think it was his fault.
No, I don't think it was either of their faults.
It was a racing incident, probably, but I think it was more Gonzalez's fault because he was riding into a disappearing wedge.
He was
really because the corner closes up at Brooklands, right?
Yes.
And I think he didn't need to risk it. He's that much quicker than anyone else this week. He looked fantastic. He looked as comfortable as Fabio, and he didn't really. If you're close enough going into Brooklands, you should be past them before you go full lean, right?
Barry was out of line though, like a little bit, but in the same way that you would be on a normal corner entry.
The normal line, because you hit Brooklands late apex, don't you?
Yes, so he's hit the late apex.
Yeah.
And I really don't think that either of them were at fault.
Okay.
Because had Barry continued a smooth line...
Yeah.
Gonzalez wouldn't have taken the line that he did. So Gonzalez took a line that said... Right, as long as Baltus is absolutely sound, I'm going to take this risk.
Yeah.
But Baltus wasn't absolutely sound and ended up wiping them both out. It wasn't a case of who's to blame.
Yeah.
They were both to blame as each other.
Yeah.
They were both in the wrong place at the wrong time. Baltus had a slight moment, and Gonzalez suffered for it because he thought. Well, he sort of.
Well, he
naively. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
He was naively looking at Baltus and going, "Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. He won't make a mistake." And then, lo and behold, he did make a slight mistake, and then that took Gonzalez out as a racing incident. You can't say anything else other than that.
I mean, I was just trying to be off the fence, and only on the fence, but that has made the standings 111 for Gonzalez, Canet's on 108, and Jake's still on 82 because Jake's still got points. So it's not over for Dixon in the championship yet.
Yeah.
As much as it's a disappointing weekend for the Brits, really. Ogden in Moto3 we'll get to in a minute because haven't got much battery left on this. We've had to recharge it once.
But I mean, genuinely, go on.
I just think Gonzalez he should have probably won that race. I think you've got to take this time. If you think the gap's there, you're going to go for it. That's the whole idea. But
that was the Moto2 race of the year.
Yeah, that last lap was outstanding, absolutely outstanding.
I've seen some incredible Moto2 races. And I feel like last year we were having an amazing run of cracking Moto2 races, because when Moto2 started, when Moto2 was about for the first time, and we didn't have the Triumph engine, the Triumph 765 engines, it was very dull. It was very processional. Sorry, and it carried on being processional for a while.
Mm.
Then now. We have this amazing racing in Moto2, and yes, it can be processional, but you don't necessarily know what the procession's going to be, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
But the races do tend to drag. You've got 45 minutes of racing where you're seeing the same riders who've got 2 second gap or whatever, 5 tenth gap, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We didn't have this with this race, did we?
No.
I mean, it was the epitome of what
You won.
Yeah, and the sort of people that complain about all the aero and the ride-height devices and the electronics in MotoGP, this is the sort of race that you would show them and say, "Watch Moto2 instead, then."
Yeah. But
that was a classic Moto2 race.
Brilliant,
and it was all over the place. And it was one of those where there was one point where I couldn't keep track. And I had to fucking pause it and think, right, let me brain this, because I was tired at this point. I've been up since fucking 7.
That's when you went to bed.
That's when I went to bed, and I think I got up about 6, and so my brain wasn't quite firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. I thought David Alonso was going to win that race. Going into the last lap, honestly, he looked like, okay.
I thought, yeah, David Alonso, here we go. This is going to be his.
He's
not on a podium yet. He's going to have some ridiculous. His first podium in Moto2 is going to be a fucking win. What's going on?
I remember texting you saying if he gets podium in general, and you were saying he's had a snifter of the front. That's it.
The floodgates going to open?
I'm telling you now, folks. Yeah. That's it. I'm going to say it. I could be wrong for a few rounds, but he will be at the front now.
The worst thing about Moto2,
David Alonso,
was I was really pissed off because during the podium celebrations, I was thinking to myself, I wonder when the last time we had an entire Southern Hemisphere podium in the intermediate class.
Right.
And then just as I opened Facebook or whatever it was, somebody else posted saying, this is the first time that we've had an all South American, Southern Hemispherian podium since. I think the actual post was, is this the first one ever we've had? Oh, no, wait. No, I've realised this is the first Southern Hemisphere podium that we've had in the intermediate class since like 1978, something like that.
Yeah.
But it is still amazing.
Yeah, still
Senna Aegis, mate, honestly, what a fucking ride. That was a proper David Alonso-esque ride from last year Moto3. Where he sort of hung around for a bit. When he overtook Moreira, I thought, surely not. No, never mind. Discounted him. I was constantly discounting Senna Aegis, thinking, he'll be like P2 at best, P3, whatever. That who's going to win this race? And I didn't think for a second, Senna Aegis could... I thought, I did think
he played it smart. He played it smart.
And it was genuinely when
he knew Canet was going to go for that move on.
When Canet went for that move on Alonso, I was like, you two have just. Oh, what are you fucking doing?
I could see.
What are you doing?
When they started to turn left.
These guys are going like 150 miles an hour, 160, 70 miles an hour. It's like they're not going. Oh, right, we're going to do this now.
No, they're not.
They're going, right, now. Let's do it now. That sort of thing. And obviously, as punters and as spectators, we can go, why did he do that?
Yeah,
what an idiot. What an idiot.
It's a Stoke mentality.
Yeah.
But yeah, Guevara was great. At the same time, I think it's about time that he started.
It is about he was on the he was on a winning bike the year that he came into it.
He was
into Moto2. He moved up with the Aspar squad, so he knew the team, he knew the engineers. He was basically, it was like moving up from a infant school to a junior school sort of thing, which is what I did. You move up with the same team. You move up with doing all sort of stuff. Obviously, it's a different team because it's Moto3 and Moto2. And then he never really picked his heels up, did he? He was sort of scraping around, like And there was all this talk about how he was really unprofessional, how he'd just be sat in
social media obsessed and on his phone on it in the
he'd be
pits.
He'd be sat in the box like that, like whatever.
Yeah.
And
It's
not really caring.
Yeah.
And there was all that talk about it. And I don't know if someone's given a good old ear boxing.
Well, don't forget that team is basically a satellite Yamaha.
Yes.
The squad.
Yeah.
It's run by Yamaha. The Yamaha money. The Blue Crew branding's all in there. It's a Pramac team. It's a serious. He can't be like that anymore. He does like you see it. He's on Guevara's Instagram. He does like the finer things in life, like Fabio. But then Fabio backs it with ultra professionalism when he's on site at a track, and that's where he's on Guevara.
That's the difference.
Yeah, that's the difference. Exactly. Yeah. So brilliant and
amazing to see him mature. Morera. I really,
Brilliant.
I think one of my championship favourites for Moto2 this year.
One of mine,
both of us,
yeah.
And I think when we did our episode about the championship, I think we had a guest, didn't we? And we spoke about it at great length, or at some point we've spoken at great length about Morera. Every time I see Morera up front now, my heart sings. I'm just like, come on, mate, come on.
And he's regarded in the paddock, from what TNT keeps saying, he's regarded in the paddock in conversations with this guy. This is going to be special.
When he turned up in Moto3 a couple of years ago, and bearing in mind that Diogo Moreira has not been in the paddock for very long at all, 2022, I want to say.
Morera's first,
I think 2022 was Moto3, and no, because I don't remember it.
In 21, good point. It doesn't matter.
Good point. We'll go back.
He's not been in long. He's not one of those riders that spent 6 years in Moto3, is he?
I think his rookie entrance was 2023. So fuck off. 2022. But I could be wrong. It could be 2021, but it's definitely not earlier than that.
No.
And I remember thinking this guy's a championship contender earlier on.
Yeah.
And this guy's incredible.
Yeah.
And he had a few tough patches. He was Mr. Consistent and always has been Mr. Consistent.
Yeah.
And then, but with no real, you're like, oh, fuck me, results.
Yeah.
And then when he moved to Moto2, I thought, it's a bit soon. And then didn't really do much. And then all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, towards the end of his rookie season. And then his sophomore season, which is at the moment, he's just a weapon.
Yeah.
He's constantly up there, even when Cannott's not there.
Yeah.
You know, Morera is there. I mean, this guy has been in Moto2 for just over a year.
That's it, because obviously
getting on to a year and a half.
He won his first race ever in Grand Prix in the Indonesian Grand Prix of 2023.
In 2020.
In
Moto 2023 or in
Same
Moto3. Fuck's sake! In the GP4 X2 race.
Yeah, if you're listening, Pete.
So incredible, and I rate Diogo Moreira.
He's coming up at the right time as well, because
this guy is going to be. I think we'll be with Yamaha before we know it. I really think that Yamaha are going to have a massive reshuffle.
Yeah.
We've had so many rumours. We're going to talk about silly season very, very soon.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is the Pecco Bagnaia one. Anyway, so Moto2 was incredible.
Brilliant.
Thoroughly enjoyed Moto2.
Happily watched one of those.
We have had a couple. Yeah, we have had a couple of boring Moto2 races. We've had a couple of boring Moto3 races as well. And to be honest, out of the three races on Sunday, Moto3 was fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
But compared to Moto2, which came first, so we had Moto2, then GP, then 3.
Yeah. Well,
because
that brings us on
because
to that
fucking Silverstone.
But because Silverstone, even though in the Pirelli era, Moto3 races have been more spaced out, you'll have the front 2 or 4, sometimes a runaway leader. But it's predictable at Silverstone. It was a massive group. Scott Ogden was part of it. The Brit fans. Scott, annoyingly, I don't care if I say this, but not aggressive enough. And I just think he needs to be more aggressive under braking. In general, you can tell he's not back in at KTM. in. He's not braking as hard. Maybe he's not going down the gears as hard. The engine, you can tell he's not pushing into these corners as hard as these front-running KTM riders really push it in. They're really on the ragged edge.
I feel like I see Scott entering corners a lot earlier than other riders.
Yeah.
And this is really important.
It almost looks like an outlap.
Yeah.
Which is that sounds a bit harsh.
And it's really important. When I look at the group, and unfortunately, vast majority of the time, Scott is at the back of a group. And it might be the leading group, it might be the chasing group, but Scott...
He's always in one of those groups, though, isn't he, really?
But he's always in one of those two groups.
He's never
either in the leading or the chasing group.
Yeah.
But he's always at the back of them. And it's almost like he's waiting for the perfect opportunity for something to happen.
Which is never going to happen in motorsport. Well, you'll get it.
It just doesn't happen.
No.
You have to... I would love to be able to say, as a Moto3 rider, that I know exactly what to do. I don't know exactly what to do. And the thing is that... But in reality, as a Moto3 rider, especially a seasoned one, and I can't believe that we're saying this about Scott Ogden now. He's a seasoned Moto3 rider.
Massively seasoned,
I would consider him a veteran because we were doing podcasts. We were doing podcasts when he was still wet behind the ears in Moto3, but he's still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he's doing it now, not on the Honda, on a KTM.
More frustratingly than that. By the way, we know about the Dixon's mess up in Q2. We've already spoken about Moto2, so we haven't got much time. So we know that could have been better for Dixon qualifying. But we'll go back to Moto3. Scott Ogden, he was in the top 5 in these practice sessions for Silverstone. So his practice was there. His one lap pace was there.
He topped P1 at one point.
Yeah.
I think it was FP1 or maybe practice. Yeah. But Scott topped it and topped it for a while. And then I was like, oh, hang on a minute, something clicked.
And then he gets to Q2.
He's got
P16.
He's got a new bike. He's at his home Grand Prix. Maybe we can get a top 5 out of Scott. Maybe a top 10.
You think it?
And then it was like, no, fuck it, no, P12 will do.
But you think positively about Scott, especially when he gets into Q2.
We always do. We always think positively about Scott.
Which you would do. But at the same time, Scott. Q2, P16. Now... this sounds bad, but we will get on to Rueda's incredible ride before we go as well, obviously. But, P16 Q2, even if he got onto the front 2 rows, right, his current aggression level, which is low, if you don't mind me saying, folks, I still think he'd have been beaten up. If he got a great tone, a great lap in Q2 and got on the front row,
imagine if
he'd be beaten up a bit in these battles. Because these Spanish riders are absolutely bloody fearless. They're all fearless.
Exactly. And you've got rookie riders like Guido Pini, the Italian lad.
Yeah.
And he is... You don't necessarily see the results from him, but the aggression, when you watch the entire pack in Moto3 rather than just looking at the tower on the side, if you actually watch Pini, the guy is a fucking dive bomb specialist. He doesn't give a shit.
No. Which sometimes pisses, as we've heard, pisses people off and other riders in practice sessions, but you've got to be like that.
But Guido Pini doesn't give a shit. Yeah. And that's the sort of style that we see from riders like David Munoz, who has been in the paddock now for a couple of years, 2.5 years, and we're like, come on, mate, you need to mature. And Guido Pini, this is his first Grand Prix, full-time Grand Prix year. Yeah. This is his first year.
Yeah.
And you see here and you think, this guy is an absolute animal. He's a dick.
Yeah. But
he's going to mature, hopefully. Yeah. And funnily enough, he ends up being David Munoz's teammate. And David Munoz is one of those riders at the moment we haven't seen him do any kind of, I'm a bit of a knob, I better, sort that out, but I need to be somewhat of a knob. But the Guido Pini, I think that he's going to be more of a complete rider.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't say Herrera. I'd say that he's going to be more of a complete rider because at this point he is learning from his team how to not race, which is the David Munoz effect, let's just fucking rag it. Let's just rag it. But David Munoz really impressed me at Silverstone. Yeah. Really impressed me.
Again.
Is the first time where I've seen David Munoz and I've thought, this guy knows what he's doing. Because usually you see David Munoz and he's still in Red Bull Rookies. He's still in one of the junior categories.
The
and
way,
he's just like, fuck off sort of thing.
Erratic.
Erratic and childish.
Yeah.
And churlish. And he's actually at Silverstone. I remember watching the Silverstone race from Moto3 and thinking, has it finally clicked? And it is a perfect track for Munoz. It is a perfect track. It's fast and flowing, which is exactly what he does well. Put David Munoz on a stop-start track, and he looks like he just doesn't know what he's doing. But put him on a fast-flowing track like Mugello or Phillip Island or Silverstone. But
he will be at the front end, like Le Mans, which is actually quite stop and start. He's at the front, but he doesn't look comfortable. But that was
he really didn't
my
look
memory,
comfortable.
Alex, was it his crash at Luffield with the fiery crash?
Yes. So I was going to go on to this. Now that was Luca Lunetta.
The move
that Luca Lunetta pulled. Right. Genuinely, if we were to, I know they do the ride of the race for every fucking for MotoGP. If they did it for every single category, if they did it for every class, all three classes, I would genuinely say Luca Lunetta, because the move that he pulled on Munoz, yes, was dirty and aggressive. He outbraked himself, and Munoz he put himself in Munoz's path. Munoz couldn't move, and then amazingly Lunetta, quite rightly, got the penalty, served his penalty beautifully.
Yeah, it was very seamless.
Still ended on the podium, because and the reason why I'm saying that he is my rider of the race for Moto3 is because he did everything absolutely beautifully, apart from that one mistake that he made that made Munoz crash. And even if I was a Munoz fan, I'd be saying, I would still be saying the same thing. And then afterwards, in Parc Fermé, I was thinking, when he was on the podium, I was thinking in Parc Fermé when Jack Albiard's interviewing, I was like, please apologise to him, please apologise to David, please apologise to David. And he went, and I just want to say to David, I'm really, really sorry. And I was like, class man, good on you.
Yeah.
And he was, apart from that misdemeanour, he was fucking brilliant.
He was good, and I like Luke Lunetta, and he's a front runner. And it's good to see him consistently.
But it's also aggression.
Well, we love that anyway, Moto3. But I must disagree with the rider of the race, because that has to be Jose Antonio Rueda, because you said he was going to win the British Grand Prix.
I did say he was going to win the
You did, and I said Piqueras will beat him.
You mean the Grand Prix of the United Kingdom?
Yes, I do. Yes, but I did say Piqueras will finally beat him, and Piqueras crashed at the third to last corner at the Vale chicane.
So the rider of the race was actually me, because I was right and you were wrong.
No, you should have said Rueda, because who's done that? Marquez has done that, and Pedro Costa's done that. That is a very exclusive club.
You're absolutely right.
Okay,
okay. Fair enough.
I'll admit, tracks like Qatar and Silverstone, wide flowing, you can carry more corner speed, and sort of it's easier to catch.
And we often say Silverstone's a bit too big for Moto3.
Yeah, but you've got more time.
Which is why we see the. Yeah, I remember being at Silverstone 2021, and it was a 21 rider train for the first half of the race, and it was just like the only riders that aren't in this are like fucking like Ana Carrasco and like Lorenzo Falanos or whatever.
But Rueda, starting from the back. I mean, it didn't start from. To be fair, Acosta's was actually Rueda's from the back of the grid, wasn't it? Right?
Yes.
Yeah, Acosta's
back
from
of the grid,
which is even harder.
But
still, it's a track where you can gain more time. But that's not me taking anything away from Jose. It was outstanding. And he got to the front way before the end of the race anyway.
And he now joins that elite group of riders who can win from either the back or from buggering it. No one can do that in Moto2. No one in Moto2 can win from the back. Nobody in MotoGP can win from the back.
That'll never happen.
The closest thing that we've had in recent times was Marc Marquez having his tearaway go under his rear wheel and falling all the way back and then pulling his way back to the front.
Was that Mark? God, yeah, that was fairly recent. I forgot about that bloody tearaway. Yeah, the tear off. Yeah. But you're right. It'll never happen in MotoGP just because it's the bike's all different. And
but honestly, Jose Antonio Rueda,
rider of the day for me.
Yeah, I think my issue is that I always look at whoever won the race and just go, yeah, that was great, but I need to choose someone
that didn't win the race.
That didn't win the race as my rider of the day. So that was my disease. Yeah. But yeah, 100%. Jose Antonio Rueda from the back of the grid, and obviously he got the infringement after he was riding slowly in qualifying. On the racing line, something that we usually see Franco Morbidelli doing.
Again,
but yeah, amazing ride from Jose Antonio Rueda, and what a guy. And I said this to you the other day, didn't I? Said, are we now going to see a dominance from Rueda that we saw last year from Alonso in Moto3?
The points gap now is ridiculous from Aguero.
The points gap is ridiculous. And let's not forget as well that Buceras didn't actually finish the race.
No, he didn't. And
crashed.
Yeah, so it would have been a smaller points gap.
But really spammed it. But it was almost like, I mean, obviously on the pit board, I don't know if on the pit board at any point someone said, oh, number 36 out to Rueda.
Well, there would be any point, would there? Because he'd been going over the line winning the race.
But the thing is, because it was quite early on, wasn't it?
No, last lap.
Oh shit! No, it was. Yes.
Yeah.
God, yeah, it was.
You knew that.
Last lap, and it was the last corner or something daft like that.
Imagine the pit board to Rueda. Look, by the way, because
that was. I don't know where my brain was going there. Obviously full of wine.
You knew that anyway. But great Moto3 race as always. For a starter, again up the front group could have been better. Fernandez always leads a race at some point.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know why I'm looking at that. That's the standings. But yeah, Almansa did brilliantly in that race. He really did come into his own there. I was really impressed with Almansa.
Leading for so long. Almansa led for so long.
Yeah.
Kelso really, really pissed me off. Like, oh man, that was so annoying. I was gutted for
that. That happened early on.
Gutted for it.
But Quiles as well, we just mentioned Quiles, how young he is as well in this class, with a lot of riders established and older. Quiles, he's going to be a star. He is going to be an absolute star.
He's on the vertical management doodah. They're always battling about, Mark and Alex's thing.
Yeah. Thing is, it's a really, really tough generation, this, because David Alonso is only like 1.5 year older than these guys. It's going to be so hard for them to get rides. Unless we get another team in MotoGP to make it back up to 24 rides.
Yeah.
It's so hard now. It's so hard. You've got your established MotoGP riders that are there or thereabouts still, like Jack Miller.
Do you know what's crazy?
It's just so annoying because there's not enough rides for all of. I mean, look at this. Yeah. Peroni's going to be brilliant. Okay, Carpe is going to be brilliant. Some of these riders won't be MotoGP till 2029 potentially, something like that. But it's Rueda and Quiles will probably be one of those riders, a bit like Acosta and Alonso. They'll probably leapfrog years because of how good they are.
The most annoying thing about this whole thing, mate, though, is that we've still got Tyre Ferrozato finishing P12.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he was in the front group, P12, but but he was higher up in that front group. But it's so fiercely competitive, especially when they get to Moto2. It's lethal. I just wish there was more MotoGP slots, man.
Oh, something I noticed on the timing tower, we have Vincente Perez and we have Valentin Peroni, right? And at the last, at Le Mans, someone realised, I think one of the commentators mentioned it, but I think someone must have realised that they were both V pair on the timing tower.
Right, so they never changed it.
Valentin Peroni and Vincente Perez. So V-P-E-R on the thing. Someone has finally fucking changed it to V pair for Valentin Peroni and V Pez.
Yeah, the Z.
For Vincente.
Yeah, I actually didn't notice it till that, and I thought, oh, okay. I saw that in the Motor race that they are different. But
I was like, thank God for that, because there was one point in one of the sessions where it was like P2 and 3, and Perez and Peroni.
Yeah,
and I was like, what? But it's V-Pez.
Yeah.
V-Pez. And then one of them was V-Pez and one of them was V-Pair. And I was like, yes!
Finally, about time. So,
really important news there, folks.
Yeah,
So
Tony
someone
thinks
is
so.
listening. This is the thing: if you whinge enough, someone's listening. Unless you're an idiot, then don't whinge at all.
All that.
Yeah.
That is important.
That's important. If
right.
you're an idiot, just go to the lunatic asylum.
Quick roundup for a silly season because we are pushing it for time. I don't even know, right? GP1 report talk about Toprak is actually closing their MotoGP deal with Yamaha.
Everyone's been reporting this recently.
Everyone would suddenly link to Yamaha, and I keep hearing Pecco as well. My uncle's on about it as well. Like, okay, but I can't find any links about Pecco other than chatter.
Just paddock chatter. I have a source in the paddock. I have a source here. I have a source there. And Pecco's definitely going to be going to Yamaha. Or it's Razgatlioglu's definitely going to Yamaha next year. He won't be going to Honda. It's like, where have you got all this shite from? The thing about Pecco is just hearsay. But it is a massive talking point. Pecco is obviously very unhappy at the moment. And I think someone's just milking it.
Probably are, mate. Like, I mean,
he'll take Renzi's spot. The thing is we know that Razgatlioglu is not, well, from a couple of years ago, when there was also this chatter about him moving to MotoGP, we know that he's not going to take anything. Well, Kenneth Sofoglu is not going to take anything that isn't a factory
team. It won't even be a factory bike. I don't think Keelan will even let him accept that. So, yeah.
So, forget having the current bike, but with the satellite team.
He's not going to replace Oliveira.
It's going to be.
No.
He's not going to replace Oliveira.
No. Toprak will want the latest updates as fast as Quartararo, and which is always how the Toprak and Keenan Sofoglu management rider thing has always worked, which annoys me really because without that, I think Toprak would have been MotoGP 2 years ago.
Yeah,
certainly a year ago.
The thing is that this all happened with Honda a while ago. It all happened with KTM, and it's so fucking boring with Razgatlioglu now. Is that we're always just talking about, it's almost like we're wasting time. What's Razgatlioglu doing now?
The Honda thing, I think, is still realistic, but then there's still too many riders going for this ride. I think if you're, it sounds boring, guys, but I think if I was Alberto Puig and whoever else at Honda, I'd probably...
He's leaving.
Whoever's calling the shots there. If Alberto definitely leaves, I think that's still... The thing is, we're going into a Pirelli era soon. Martini's a bit of a... I don't want to talk about mine because we need to wrap up, but I think I'd still probably pick him in Grand Prix. I think right now, if it was Honda and the Costa managed to, KTM are staying after the deal, they are staying. Let's say Costa stays. I still think if you're Honda, are you going to pick Toprak or are you going to pick Martin? You're probably going to pick a MotoGP World Champion on prototypes, I think. But at the same time, Toprak knows the Pirellis. So
the issue for me, mate, is that Toprak Razgatlioglu comes with Keenan Sofoglu.
Yeah. It's a package deal, annoyingly.
It's a package deal, and Sofoglu is probably one of those people that, he is one of those people where when you hear his name, you go, oh, fuck it up.
Yeah, I do. I actually fucking do, mate. I'm actually really annoyed about it because, if you look at likes of Cal Crutchlow, look at likes of Ben Spies.
Yeah,
these riders have won World Superbike races, and won titles, and they
got podiums.
And they got a satellite. Right? Yes, okay. Toprak is a 2-time World Superbike champion, so he's got a bit more pulling weight here than where he goes. But Colin Edwards went to Aprilia in 2003, and that it was a factory team, but it wasn't a proven bike. Troy Bayliss, went to the Ducati factory. It was a brand new project, so they had no idea how competitive it was going to be. The list goes on. James Toseland, another one, World Superbike champion twice. That's the best one. Actually, James Toseland, 2004 and 200007, World Superbike champion.
That is Toprak. That's
Toprak. That's the best. And Toseland.
A few more years in between the championships, but
I think everyone knows that in terms of being naturally gifted, Toprak's probably got a bit more than JT. Sorry, JT, if you listen. But
he's not.
He's not. But if he is, brilliant. At the same time, he accepted a Tech 3 Yamaha that they had spent a year on Bridge Dunlops in 2007. for a title sponsorship deal, Dunlop Tech 3, I think it was, and they were nowhere because it was just Dunlop MotoGP tyres. They were nowhere, and then they got a Michelin deal. Poncharal got a Michelin deal for 2008, and they were going to be really fast M1s that Rossi and Colin Edwards were on, and Rossi and Lorenzo would be on, and Tozen got on that and was second on the grid at Qatar the first race. Okay, I'm not saying Top Rack would do that. I'm just saying you don't need this factory ride straight away. These days, factory teams can win championships, as Jorge Martin's proved. But look, it's too late for that now. They're going to settle for that, especially where it is. It's just where he would go. But at the same time, if Pecco keeps struggling with these mixed silly rumours, and GP1 I've written here that Top Rack is closer, I still don't know where these Pecco rumours have gone from. But it is slowly going to become.
I think it's a speculation.
It could become if he looks at Pecco's face in the pits after that race.
He was white.
He didn't look white.
He was white as a sheet.
But thing is, what's he going to? He goes to Yamaha. I tell you what, that's a great team. The old title rivals of 2 years running. Fabio Quartararo and Pecco Bagnaia are teammates. I mean, I just think of the merch deals.
I mean, how many times have we seen that though?
Well,
think about it.
We thought the team was going to be ace and all
Rossi
that.
Lorenzo sort of thing, and
Yeah, well, we thought that about Mark and Pecco, but Pecco ain't getting on with a bike. I just hope that changes. I can't see. He's got his contract for next year. Yamaha would have to pay a lot. I'm guessing 10 million euro.
I was going to say they're already paying 12 million euro for Fabio.
Yeah, I think Pecco's on less money than Fabio, according to the reports. Because we never really know what Yamaha Corporation pay into these Fabio's account, but it's probably more than Pecco. But then they've got more the personal endorsements and things like that. But the thing is, I think if Pecco was unhappy enough and he thinks, well, the team just don't care because Mark's winning, so why would they? If that carries on and Mark just destroys him mentally and Pecco keeps crashing, or P3, P2, P4, P6, P3 again, is Pecco going to suffer another year? Are they going to listen to his feedback for the GP26 for the last year of these monsters? Or are they just going to follow Mark and think, well, we can just dominate MotoGP for the next 5 years, or at least win races and championships? And is Pecco going to think, well, I'm still young, I'm still younger than Mark.
Yep.
I'm going to go to Yamaha. I think that is definitely likely. We all thought, well, a lot of us thought Vinales would be Yamaha's golden boy. Eventually, that relationship broke down in dramatic fashion to the point where he decided to blow the engine up. And didn't win the championship.
So they say.
Well, yeah. Well, you could hear it. You could hear it. But Pecco and Yamaha would be brilliant. At the end of the day, the general sort of wrap up I mean, Top Rack is if he gets an offer, just accept it because you're close to 30. And if you're close to 30,
this is your last chance.
You're close to 30.
Your last chance. It's got to be.
It's got to be. You've got all these riders coming up from Moto2 that are so hungry and younger than you.
Think about how many Moto2 riders at the moment we've got where we could easily say that we wouldn't be surprised if they got a MotoGP slot next year. Yeah. You've got Canek, Gonzalez, you've got Moreira, definitely Moreira. There's so many riders.
Philip Salash will come of age at some point. Yeah. You've got David Alonso, you've got Guevara who might come good.
Dixon.
I'm not laughing at that. I'm just saying we talk about it so much. I'd love that to happen, but it's unlikely. But that silly season, if not this year.
There's just
Alonso's
Holgado.
Yeah.
Holgado. He's such a dark horse. I cannot believe what Holgado's
I don't think I think we might have seen that before we wrap up. I think that's maybe the last time we see. Well, you will see the times, but the last main time where you see
Alonso in front of Holgado.
No, the other way around. Other way around. Fuck me. I think Alonso sniffed the front now. And that's it. But silly season. I think. Well, it'll get more serious as we get into the middle months and the autumn months.
It's like fucking spaghetti at the moment. It always is this time of year.
It is. We love it though, don't we? Really, we love it. Silly season. We're that for it, aren't we? But yeah. Anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in for a feature-length episode, and it was great to have Ryan on again. Sorry we're at Silverstone. We would have had a great time. We'd have had a moan, but we'd have had a good time seeing bikes. And Bruno is not too long away. We've still got. So you got now Aragon, I believe, next, and then Mugello. Then you've got Assen.
No, then we get to the Central European leg of
it. Germany, then
can't wait.
Yeah. So it's going to come fast soon. So, but thanks for tuning in again, folks, for this feature-length Grand Prix of the United Kingdom special. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys, and we will see you again next week.
Cheers, folks.
Toodaloo.
Bye.